Hi, everybody. Never really done a reading before, but I'm going to be reading an excerpt of my memoir, Silence in the Quiet of Peace. So this is about my life as a refugee in Bosnia. I was a kid when Serb forces sieged our city and we were left homeless for a very long time. And I know it's not supposed to be, political, but I tell everybody genocide is always political. And so living as a genocide survivor and seeing things repeat everywhere I go, figured I would share some pieces of the book. So I guess I'll just go right in. I didn't really know which part to take, so I'm just going to start with the beginning. So this is a brief poem called Morus Vivendi. They raised their flags to our skies for king. They sieged our cities. Dead bodies suffused the land for fatherland. Within the arms of Sarajevo, our hopes faded. Freedom. Outside the borders of Srebrenica, our tears ran dry. Or death. Zajedno smo jači. Together we are strong. Kisha, my father exclaimed as rain began to fall. It was the first time I remembered rain. The power had been gone for some time and it was a relatively dark, silent night. Our shadows danced on the walls, brought to life by the flames from a lantern, which I learned to proficiently use by the time I was 5. When we did not have oil for the lantern, we had to resort to using candles or sit in complete darkness. We heard the unmistakable sound of a grenade detonating, so much like the thunder during this rain, then watched in fear as lives disappeared in the cadence of the rumble. We knew we had to turn down our lights or risk becoming targets, despite many of the grenades and mortars being launched at a random target. There's a moment, just after the detonation, that takes your breath away. It's like the heavens themselves freeze for just that single moment in time. The entire world takes a deep breath and holds it in as your blood freezes like a lake in winter, a chill running down your spine, down your shoulders, and into your arms, working its way to your hands and lower part of your body. Breathing is just as uncomfortable as the pins and needles you feel in your fingertips that dare not even flinch for fear of being seen by this ancient force that takes lives in a single exhale of that held breath. For those who survive this force, their minds are poisoned, haunted by it for the rest of their lives. They will never forget the sound of grenades or the sound of thunder that so perfectly complements the serenade of a man-made killer. Somewhere in the distance, someone was calling out for help, but their cries would go unanswered, on this night anyway. In a perfect world, an ambulance would be en route to assist the injured, but in our fishbowl, there was just us and we had to fend for ourselves. In the pitch dark, the victims were slipping away, succumbing to their wounds, and not even a bed of stars above to guide them to the afterlife. The best they could do was hope for a quick death. I watched the bucket on the windowsill fill up with water, first slowly, then on and off as the rain passed through. There wouldn't be a chance to bathe if the rain did not intensify, but I was so thirsty that I never noticed how awful we all smelled, being cooped up in a house all day with no power or water. There it was again, I noticed, the shelling. Another neighborhood ravaged at random by them, who took little heed of us. In my adult years, I've always wondered how many casualties were children, how many survived, how many were left without limbs, how many more nights could we spend in complete darkness? How did it come to this? They'll kill us all, my mother whispered with bated breath. She was frightened, almost hysterical. She let out a gasp at every detonation, her body trembling violently. She struggled to keep her composure, but knew she had to feign calmness for my brother, twin sister, and myself. Outside of our bowl awaited men with hearts made of stone, and she knew it was only a matter of time before we had to face them ourselves. Relax, my father says reassuringly. That was all he could say. He remained calm in case we had to flee somewhere. Sitting down at a table nearby, I could see him shuffling around, his leg violently bobbing up and down. As I leaned in closer to the window, a brilliant flash of light blinded me, which was followed by a robust roar that shook the windows and made the already damaged walls wail. In the faint light, you could swear the falling dust clouds made faces that looked like they were screaming. Get away from the window, my mother screamed, running to my side and pulling me away from the window. Do you want to get struck by lightning? She added quickly. For the rest of my life, she would admonish me about standing in the doorway or at a window during a thunderstorm. When I was older, I realized it was never thunder she feared would strike me down. My father once said that the greatest folly of mankind is their own denial. The Bosnians who believed war would never come to their doorstep suddenly found themselves like the rest of us. Shells and mortars falling all around them, facing imminent danger while foraging for food and water, and watching the streets turn to piles of rubble and ash sprinkled with blood and guts from innocent civilians whose only malfeasance in this war was being alive. Their wealth no longer mattered, and to the servant forces, neither did their lives. There was no safeguard against their onslaught, and the only good anyone's money served was to keep the fires burning during the unforgiving winter. My father planned to smuggle us to hide with his mother or fleeing somewhere safe, somewhere where our windows would not be blown out, somewhere where we would have running water and safe food, somewhere where there was safety for at least one night where we could sleep with both eyes shut. As the rain outside intensified, the shelling finally stopped. Perhaps the aggressors did not want to stand outside in the rain. Perhaps they were tired too. Or perhaps they were just waiting to strike when our defenses were down. Despite the bloodshed, my mother refused to alarm us at the things going on in the world outside of our fishbowl. After all, how does a mere child reconcile such events? When the gravity of our situation settled in, we did not even have half-stuffed toys to hold for comfort in the middle of the night. While the fear of agonizing death gripped us, we just had the cold air passing through our cracked walls. You could smell something burning in the air, rubber, plastic, perhaps fabric. The neighborhood smelled awful, especially during the colder months. People burned whatever they could find to stay warm. Clothes, car parts, luggage, whatever could be burned was thrown into the fire. Sometimes I wondered if burning ourselves alive would be a much easier way to go. No one wanted to be torn apart by a bomb or grenade, or have shrapnel ripped through them, leaving flesh barely hanging on to bone and muscle. When the bucket had been mostly filled to the brim with rainwater, my father took it from the window and poured it over a glass that had been used so many times without ever being washed. I took a sip of the water and thanked him sheepishly, trying not to complain about the almost metallic taste. So that's pretty much just the first chapter. The book does follow our time in Bosnia up until the war ended. For those unaware, Bosnia was one of the sites of the largest mass killing in Europe since World War II, the Srebrenica massacre. So I do have copies of the book if anybody would like one. But yeah, so that's my memoir.